A week ago, Syracuse got over the mountaintop in finally defeating Maryland. Yet Gary Gates' group emphasized the importance that being number one in the country was not the end goal. So embarking on a 6-game road trip, the focus seemed strong. Yet Harvard showed last year it can stand with Syracuse and did that today, knocking the Cuse off 13-12. Meanwhile, the struggles continued for Syracuse basketball, losing by 13 to North Carolina. Orange Press Pass is here with highlights and everything else that happened in a wild day of college athletics here on Saturday, and it starts right now. Welcome inside our CitrusTV studios. We're coming to you live for Orange Press Pass, recapping Syracuse and Harvard, and we'll get to Syracuse and North Carolina basketball a little bit later. But it's Rahill, Jaiswall, and Ryan Croke next to me. I'm AJ Myers. And gentlemen, that was some lacrosse game we had there. A little bit of snow, and it didn't go the way of Syracuse.
No, AJ and Ryan, this is a real gut punch. That's the first thing that comes to my mind here. I mean, almost every single stat category was dead even. Ground balls, saves, face-offs. But the one that tipped the Harvard's way was the score sheet, 13-12. A brutal one for SU to lose, but games like this happen. It's a tough break for Syracuse.
Yeah, for me, my first thought is today's loss shows this team wasn't quite ready for the mountaintop. You're number one in the country. You're getting everybody's best shot. This is a Harvard team that beat you last year in the regular season. It was a shocking upset then. It's perhaps even more shocking today. But this is what the expectation is when you're the number one team in the nation. Every team is going to treat you this way if you're atop the national rankings. Syracuse was, the pressure got to them, and Harvard took advantage of it today.
All right, let's see how things unfolded between Syracuse and Harvard. The first time this year that the Orange were out in the elements and they got exposed to some of those elements, a little bit of snow, and it was a pretty strong start from the Orange. Luke Roa finding the back of the net early on in the first quarter. That put the Orange ahead 2-1, and then later in the quarter, of course, Joey Spleen is going to show up. He's showing up for every game. Getting a goal here. I don't know if he had his best performance on the day, but in the first quarter, he put the Syracuse ahead 3-1. But Rahill, the second quarter, started the Harvard brigade.
Yeah, AJ, this is really where the Crimson got back into the game and started to believe that they can win this one.
Harvard scoring 5 unanswered goals. It seemed like, Ryan, they would never stop scoring in this quarter.
Yeah, they were absolutely on fire. It was really impressive to me. Their top goal scorer, Teddy Malone, 10 goals in 2 games, didn't score in that first half.
To the second half we go, locked at 6. Finn Thompson buries it for the Orange. They go ahead 7-6. Just when you thought, all right, Syracuse, they're going to get back in the rhythm. They're going to take over. Nope. Harvard is ahead 9-7, and then Nathan Colbury puts them ahead 10-7. Rahill, alarm bells ringing at this point going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, going into the fourth quarter was shaky, but Syracuse found their way back in, and you thought they were going to pull it out at this point, AJ.
Luke Roa getting the goal, and then Joey Spalina fighting in to the crease for the strike. Ryan, though, Syracuse, they couldn't close the deal.
Yeah, you have a 12-10 lead in the fourth. You think you're about to pull away, but it wasn't too big.
Sean Jordan with another strike for him, leveling the score at 12. Here we go. Less than a minute left. Harvard, they set up the winning goal. Nathan Colby gets it. 13-12. Harvard with the lead. Syracuse ultimately just did not have enough time. They tried to draw up a nice play, and really they get a good look for who else but Joey Spalini. Everyone knew Spalina would have the ball here, but either a good save or Spalina just didn't execute the shot correctly. Time would expire. Harvard upsets the top team in the country, Syracuse, 13-12, and picks up a massive victory. Rahill, you look at the stats in this one, and honestly, you have to say Syracuse still played good, but Harvard was brilliant.
Yeah, you got to give credit to Harvard. They balled out in this one. You know they had this game circled on their schedule, especially what happened in the NCAA tournament last year.
Yeah, and they came out with a fire, and it was led by John Art, Nathan Colbury. Both those guys end up with a hat trick, and they combined for the game-winning goal. Great chemistry shown from them. Great game out of this Harvard attack squad.
And we're now excited to be joined by the man that was at this game for us, Jake Klein. He witnessed what is turning out to be one of the bigger upsets this season so far. Jake, thanks so much for joining us. Where do you think Syracuse got exposed the most today?
AJ, surprisingly, I think the place Syracuse was exposed the most was at the face-off stripe. If you remember the 2 games against Harvard last year, John Mullen absolutely dominated anything that Harvard threw at him. Today, 15 face-off wins for Syracuse, 14 for Harvard, very even. That was a big reason why the Crimson were able to stay in this game. And when we talked to the Harvard head coach, Jerry Byrne, after, we said, what was the difference at the stripe between this year and last year? He said, we were overcoaching our guys in the 2 matchups last year. This year we said basically nothing to them, just like you wouldn't say anything to a kicker in football, took the pressure off, and the performance was much better.
Area of concern for Syracuse was that second quarter, getting outscored 5-0. What exactly happened with the Orange in that second frame?
Well, I think it was 2 things, Rahill, and we talked to Gary Gate about this. The first was that Syracuse just didn't have the ball a ton in that quarter, and obviously that's the name of the game in lacrosse, possession. If you don't have the ball, you can't score. Syracuse was dominated possession-wise by Harvard for most of that second period. Big reason why it was 5-0. And then, as Gary Gate always says, it just came down to execution. When Syracuse did get a couple of shots in that second quarter, Graham Stevens, the Harvard goalie, who of course was great against the Orange last year in 2 matchups, was great again today. Syracuse didn't have a lot of shots in the second, didn't take advantage when they did get shots. That's why it was a 5-0 quarter, and that was the difference in the game.
Jake, thanks so much for joining us. We talked to you earlier on Q's Countdown. You talked about Harvard's attack. You mentioned a lot of names who could cause a lot of problems for Syracuse today. Obviously, that's what happened. What did you see out of that unit today?
Well, Ryan, I think the thing with Harvard's attack unit that a lot of people don't understand, and I've been trying to tell people for years, is that Harvard is good. That's why it was so hard for Syracuse to stop Harvard, because Harvard is good. They're a lot like Syracuse. That's what Gary Gates said earlier in the week anyway. Not because they score a ton of goals, although they have quietly been one of the higher scoring offenses in the country over the last couple of years under Neil Hutchinson, the offensive coordinator, but mostly because they just have so many different ways to beat you. And I think you saw that on display today. Was it Jack Spidell? Maybe. Was it Teddy Malone? Maybe. Nate Cobry goes for a hat trick, the freshman. Johnny Arndt with a couple huge goals. So, look, there's guys who are A guys on Harvard, preseason first-team Ivy Leaguers and stuff like that, but they're not always the ones who can beat you. Syracuse did a pretty good job on Jack Spidell today. It was some of the role players for Harvard that were the difference makers in this game.
Jake, thank you so much for your great insight and a safe trip back here to the 315. I think the most important thing that Jake said there was that Harvard is good. This is a quality Crimson team, Rahill.
Yeah, and they proved it last year, I think, mainly because Syracuse got that win over Maryland. People were expecting, it's 1 versus 14, but the Crimson are good. They stayed with the Orange last year and had them on the ropes in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's an important reminder after a loss like this. You're the number 1 team in the nation, your first road trip. Harvard's a top 15 team in the country, and they're no pushover whatsoever. I think that was a little bit of commentary coming into this game. Obviously, it was proven false.
Certainly. When we come back here on Orange Press Pass, we're going to get into what Harvard did so well in this game and areas that the Orange did struggle in for the first time this year because they were undefeated before this. All that and more when Orange Press Pass comes back right after this. Back inside our Citrus TV studios for Orange Press Pass, AJ Myers alongside Rahill, Jaiswall, and Ryan Croke. Hang tight for Syracuse men's basketball reaction between North Carolina. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Still unpacking the big result today for Syracuse men's lacrosse, #1 team in the country, falling to Harvard away from home. But guys, this was not the only big result across college lacrosse today. I mean, holy smokes, upsets galore, Rahill.
I mean, how about Maryland falling to Princeton 13-12? And then, Ryan, we were talking about before, Penn State losing again. I mean, it's just carnage everywhere you look.
Yeah, I'm so confounded by this Penn State team. You lose to Villanova in an embarrassing loss, then you destroy Princeton, and you have me asking questions about that team. They just beat Maryland, and now you lose to Navy. It's just unbelievable how this start of the season's gone.
And narrowing in to the ACC results, some pretty interesting things there too, Ryan.
Yeah, and I look at that North Carolina Johns Hopkins win. Today, the #2 team in the country lost. Today, the #1 team in the country lost. The #3 team in the country dominated #13. Is North Carolina going to be #1 after this week? It's a conversation that's going to be had.
It seems most logically to happen. I mean, they beat the #13 team in the country. You mentioned Syracuse and Maryland also slipping up. But how about that Georgetown-Notre Dame game coming up? Remember when Georgetown was announced on Syracuse's schedule, a lot of people were like, I don't know about that. That's the first opponent they have back in the Dome after their 6-game road trip. That could be another really interesting test for Syracuse coming back home to the JMA Wireless Dome.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how the polls shake up at the end of the weekend with this result. But can we assume it's UNC going #1, or is there a chance SU stays atop even with the defeat today?
I have a hard time seeing them stay atop.
Yeah, I think UNC would be the perennial #1 right now, which is crazy to think. But.
Yeah, and one of the reasons maybe for that is because Syracuse was not as dominant at the face-off X as they typically are. They still won the battle, Rahill, but John Mullen only winning it by 1 face-off is really uncommon.
Yeah, it was a shocker, and I'm dumbfounded because at the start of the show, and when we were doing live CC before previewing, I said that there's absolutely no way John Mullen loses the face-off battle, and today was 50-50. I mean, who knows? Is this a sign of concern for things to come? Because he didn't look great against Maryland either.
Yeah, I mean, you have to ask yourself, is there a John Mullen problem? It's the second straight game you've had issues with him at the face-off dot. We spent so much time talking about, oh, Syracuse will be fine at the face-off X today. Owen Umansky's the career 40% winner at the face-off dot, and he more than held his own today. You could argue he was better.
Yeah, especially in the big-time moments. Mullen got a couple of them down the stretch, but every time it seemed like Syracuse picked up a little bit of momentum, there was a huge face-off win for Harvard, and it was shocking because Mullen won 88% of the face-offs in the 2 games last year. It's a complete flip of the script, AJ.
And I go right to what Jake Klein said earlier about overcoaching.
Yep, that's interesting.
Harvard's coaches mentioning that they were overcoaching their face-off guys a season ago. They say, all right, just go out and do your thing, and it paid off today. They more than held their own, gave John Mullen some real issues.
Against Maryland, Mullen just barely won over 50% of the face-offs today, as I mentioned, 15-14 at the X. That definitely is a concern, and Ryan, I think you make a great point to what Jake said. Harvard maybe overthought it last time, and really, in a way, could you say that Harvard thought, oh, well, last year everything worked except the face-off. If we clean up that, we'll get a result today.
Well, it's certainly something. Yeah. I mean, but to be fair, they overthought the face-off last year. They still did pretty darn good against Syracuse last year.
They won a game.
They won a game. They almost beat them in playoffs as well.
Well, another thing the Crimson did extraordinarily well today was spreading the wealth. 8 different goal scorers, Ryan. That is one of the keys if you want to beat Syracuse. It can't just be one guy.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Harvard's offense today. And again, you talk about spreading the wealth. You have Teddy Malone, who scored 10 goals in 2 games, 5 per game to start the season. And we didn't hear his name until the third quarter, Rahill. He didn't get on the board until that third quarter, and Harvard was already in control of the game. I was really impressed by their ability to spread the wealth, get other guys involved, namely John Art and Nathan Cobry, who both finished with hat tricks today.
Yeah, you have to give Harvard a lot of credit. They played a great game up and down, offensively, defensively. But as you talked about, Ryan, Teddy Malone is a lot of times considered the engine of this team, and he doesn't get on the score sheet till the third quarter. The Harvard shows that they have a bunch of different guys that can beat you in a bunch of different ways. And if this good face-off play, improved face-off play continues, I mean, with this offense, sky's the limit for the Crimson this year.
Yeah, and we even got a long pole goal from this game from the Crimson. I mean,
everything was working.
Everybody was finding the net. And Andrew Parry got things started with the first goal of the game. He had another really nice one later on. These three guys, none of which we really expected were talking about much coming into today. Jack Spidell, Teddy Malone, what are those guys going to do? Syracuse's defense put a lot of focus on them, but these guys slipped through the cracks and really took advantage.
And before this game started, we talked about Syracuse maybe over-focusing on Teddy Malone. Ryan, do you think they did that today?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
They did their job there, but they didn't do it anywhere else, and that's why they lost the game.
Well, another aspect of maybe Syracuse faltered today was the shots. They got a ton, but only 26 on goal. That's the same amount as Harvard did. You can get all the shots you want, but they got to be on goal, Rahill.
Yeah, and this was, I think, one of the more disappointing things about this Syracuse offense, mainly because when they had great looks, they just didn't convert them, Ryan. A couple ones in front of the net where it just has to be better. And then also, at the start of the game, a lot of possessions where there were a lot of standing still, not the type of shots that you expect from this Syracuse offense when they get downhill and dodge. And again, full credit to the Crimson defense because they made Syracuse very uncomfortable, and that's what helped them get on that 5-0 run.
Yeah, the shot we just saw right there was confounding to me. Joey Spallina had a phenomenal pass to Ted Rawson right on the doorstep, and he sends it wide. He didn't even put it on cage. I just don't understand how an offense that's consistently praised as one of the best in the land can have such a terrible time putting the ball on target. It made no sense today. There were so many shots that were just a little bit too aggressive. And I like the aggressiveness shooting the ball. I think it was a thing that I was really concerned about coming into the season with Syracuse. But I think they overcorrected today. There was too many shots at just inopportune times.
Well, Syracuse struggled with the shots. Harvard certainly did not. With 8 different goal scorers for Harvard, picking a player of the game was no easy task. Yet I have landed on John Arnott. He, coming into the day, the senior had scored just 1 goal, although the attacker unloaded for a hat trick. Sometimes in the biggest games, you need a player to break out and tie a career-high 4 points. Arnott did that. Biggest contribution came right at the end of the game, picking out a perfect pass to set up the winning goal. And for that, he is our Orange Press Pass player of the game. Coming up next on OPP, we switch gears to the hardwood and check in with Adam Avon, who is live at the Dome to give us full insight of what went down between SU and UNC. That is coming up right after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back inside our CitrusTV studios. AJ Myers alongside Rahill, Jaiswall, and Ryan Croke. We have unpacked everything between Syracuse and Harvard. Time to switch gears over to the hardwood. The men's team was taking on North Carolina today. And guys, Syracuse, they hung around in that first half pretty well, but ultimately couldn't seal the deal.
Yeah, I mean, this is the story of the season. It's just pathetic at what this program has become. No Caleb Wilson down. You still get kind of run off the court. I know it was close, but I never felt like Syracuse really had a chance in this one.
Well, me and AJ did. We picked them to win this game on Q's Countdown. I mean, Henry Vasar was questionable. Caleb Wilson's out, but Vasar, I mean, I had a lot of doubts about this North Carolina team. Can they get a guy to step up as a top option with Caleb Wilson sidelined? I didn't think they could do it. Vasar more than up to the task. 9 of 13 from the field, and he can shoot the deep ball.
Well, for even better insight on this one, we're going to welcome in Adam Avon, who watched this game courtside from the Dome. Adam, thanks so much for joining us. As I already see they're ripping up the hardwood behind you. But J.J. Starling, in the first half, I looked at the box score. I'm like, oh, he's having a great game. I watched that second half, and he was unnoticeable. What happened?
Yeah, AJ, first of all, they are wrapping up everything behind me because I think the logic was we got to take the basketball stuff apart so that we could get ready for lacrosse coming up soon. And, well, then the number 1 team in the country loses, and I guess they could go a little slower with the court here. But, yeah, J.J. Starling did play well in this court in the first half of today's game, and he looked like the J.J. that Syracuse fans know and love. He was driving, he was slashing, he started off the game with a quick 4 points, just going to the lane. He wasn't trying anything crazy. And then in the second half, is basically what happens to Syracuse every game, which is they can't hit a shot. The defense wasn't anything unique, and UNC wasn't doing anything particular, but JJ, every time he drove to the lane, was getting bullied around and spinning around and missing every shot that he was taking, and it resulted in poor play across the board. But every player on Syracuse, JJ, Kyan Anthony, Nate Kings, Nate George, and Donnie Freeman, all went 0 from 3 in this game. So the 3-point struggles were noticeable across the board, but mainly for JJ in the second half, who led the team in scoring in the first. It was just a disappointing effort. You would have liked to see them stay more competitive later on.
Yeah, Adam, thanks for joining us. Another interesting element to this game was the status of Hunter Vasar, and he was unbelievable for UNC. Talk to me what you saw out of the UNC big man.
Rahill, he looked like an NBA draft pick. I mean, plain and simple. He was dominant in this game, and he was a game-time decision, but he made all the right decisions in this game. Every time he was on the floor, especially paired up with Donnie Freedom, he really showed him who was boss. He finished with 19 points in this game, and Syracuse and North Carolina were actually tied with about 12 minutes in the second half, and it looked promising. The Dome was rocking here after a big William Kyle slam dunk, and then very quickly, after North Carolina timeout, Seth Trimble goes down and scores, and then Henry Vassar has a huge slam dunk over Donnie Freeman and William Kyle that got everybody, even the Syracuse fans in the Dome, rocking. He proved why he's one of the best players in the country and can carry the load. This was his first game without Caleb Wilson, and Hubert Davis, North Carolina head coach, after the game made that very strong emphasis that he can lead this team going forward for North Carolina. That's 3 straight games now without Caleb Wilson, but no worries. If they keep playing like how they played against Syracuse today, especially with the help of Henry Vassar, they're going to be just fine.
Well, thanks, Adam. You spoke about a potential NBA draft pick in Henry Vassar, but how about one for Syracuse and Donnie Freeman? Not his best day today by any means. Even saw him out there in a number 53 jersey. What was going on with him today?
Is he an NBA draft pick in Donnie Freeman? I don't know. Not with the way that he's been performing lately. He just finished with 9 points in today's game. 2 technical fouls. It was a very weird response sort of day from Donnie, who in the second half actually thought did a really good job of trying to get to the paint and try and score. So we saw the promising signs of Donnie as a player, but the struggles are still continuing for him on a team where he is the main guy and projected this season to come in being a guy who could potentially be a top 20 pick. Instead, we're here talking about Henry Vassar on the team that Syracuse played. I don't know what happened with the number 53 jersey, but that's going to be a really unique Donnie Freeman find years from now, where Syracuse fans remember that one game where Donnie Freeman wore number 53 against North Carolina. Either way, he looked like a guy out there who wears number 53 because he couldn't make a bucket, and it was quite an embarrassing performance for Donnie Freeman, who, after one of the worst losses in program history to Duke a few days ago, you would have liked to see him do what J.J. Starling did in the first half and come out firing and make all those shots. Instead, it was brick by brick from 3 and in the paint, and Donnie Freeman and crew couldn't get the job done. A disappointing effort, but Syracuse and Adrian Autry still hopeful they have another opportunity a few days from now when they take on Wake Forest next Saturday, 5:45 p.m. tip-off. Weird, but we'll see.
Adam, thank you so much for joining us. Great insight as always. So that's what happened between Syracuse and North Carolina. We're almost done here on Orange Press Pass, but you won't go anywhere because Rahill and Ryan, they're going to sound off on this disappointing defeat for Gary Gates' group. They got some interesting thoughts on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
If you're buzzed and doing this, to make yourself feel okay to drive,
ZWX.
You're not okay to drive.
YGKLVW. Regular you.
Back inside our Citrus TV studios for Orange Press Pass, AJ Myers, Rahill, Jaiswall, and Ryan Croke. Syracuse falling to Harvard, a big upset loss for Gary Gates' group. And here's a peek at what is next for this squad. And Rahill, it gets no easier with this road trip continuing, and they're all against some pretty tough teams, 2 ranked opponents as well.
Yeah, and that Princeton ranking is definitely going to change after the game against Maryland. We don't know where Johns Hopkins is going to be. I mean, it's just chaos galore everywhere you look in college lacrosse. But, I mean, these are all very difficult games for Syracuse.
Yeah, you talk about chaos galore. I mean, coming into today, I was like, okay, they should win in theory all these games. But now I don't know what to make of any of this. I mean, Princeton, are they good again? Were they just asleep against Penn State? Johns Hopkins got crushed by North Carolina last night. I don't know what to make of any of these teams anymore. It's a very difficult 6-game road trip. They lost the first game of it today. They got 5 more to go before they're back in the Dome. We'll see what happens, but they got a lot of long road ahead.
Well, we've had a lot of opinions today from our reporters, Jake and Adam, who were on site at both games, but now it's time for Rahill and Ryan to sound off on their thoughts of Syracuse's first defeat of the year.
Today's game was a perfect example of a saying that reigns supreme for every #1 team across any sport in college. It's the nature of the beast. Harvard gave Syracuse their best today, and straight up, the Orange were not ready to handle that. And for the longest time, Michael Leo said it, SU has been chasing. They wanted that #1 ranking, but now you got it, and what happens? What happens when the hunters become the huntee? And today, Syracuse fell victim to that. Now, there's still a lot of time left in the season, and this is a learning experience. It's very possible the Orange can get back to the top of the mountain. But the question is, will they be able to handle it? Is SU a better team when they are chasing versus being chased? Because Harvard was jazzed up for this game, and if you guys know anything, especially after that NCAA tournament game a year ago, the Crimson were going to give the Orange their best, and they did, and the Orange could not handle it. So, is Syracuse a team that is going to be a better team chasing, or can they handle that #1 ranking if they ever get it back?
Look, it's incredibly easy to see a result like this and sound the alarms. The pessimists are having a good day today. The national discourse around this team will be same old Syracuse. They're not championship caliber. Another year wasted. Don't fall for it. Harvard is a very good team. We heard it from Jay Klein. SU got Harvard's best shot today and simply wasn't ready for it. But it's mid-February. They have errors to fix, yes, but they also have more than enough time to fix them. This could be the start of a slide, but I'm willing to bet that it's not. This is still SU's best shot at a title in years. This is still the most well-rounded team Gary Gate has ever had. They are far from the only perceived title contender to suffer an early season stumble. We saw several of them do it today. This loss doesn't mean that the Orange can't win the national championship. It's just a reminder of how hard it is to do so.
Great insight as always, guys. Here is a peek at our next Orange Press Pass, and it's another ranked matchup. #1, Syracuse for right now. That'll definitely change against Princeton. We assume they'll stay ranked. Quick predictions, thoughts on this one, guys?
I mean, I thought this would be a good Syracuse win, but I don't know now that Princeton beat Maryland. But I still think this is a very good opportunity for the Orange to continue to learn and rebound. Like Ryan just said, Harvard is a very good team. No different with Princeton, but overall, I think Syracuse is going to bounce back, and I can see the Orange coming out with a victory here.
Yeah, 2 teams who have a win over Maryland, but also 2 teams who have a confounding loss. It's really hard to make a lot of either one of these 2 teams for the first.
And you can't forget the thrilling game last year in the postseason between these 2 teams, Ryan.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And I think we could be in store for something similar in this one.
Hopefully not as tight as a lot of SU fans would love. Maybe a little break from the heart attack of this
Certainly.
team.
That'll do it for Orange Press Pass here tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in on the recap of men's lacrosse and men's basketball. That'll do it. Have a great night, everybody.